Hi there. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to attach pieces seamlessly as you crochet. This is the basis of a lot of no-sew and low-sew patterns. And this method that I used on my Nico the Narwhal pattern is actually just one of the ways that you can attach pieces. So let's get right into it. So I have worked up a little sample here that's going to act as the body of my piece. And then I have a little pseudo arm that I've made, and then another little piece that I will show you that technique for later. Needless to say, there are several different ways that you can actually attach pieces as you crochet to reduce the amount of sewing that you're doing. And let's talk about one of the most common ways first, which is attaching horizontally across two rows. And what I mean by horizontal is your piece that you're attaching is lining up horizontally with your rows as opposed to vertically. And to do that, you're going to press your limb flat. I haven't put any stuffing in this, but ideally if you're working on an arm or something, you would have already stuffed it before you do the attachment. Now, I didn't weave in this yarn tail. I prefer to just work over the top of mine, but this is a personal preference. You can absolutely weave this in first, just to get it out of the way. In fact, if you're attaching multiple pieces, I definitely recommend weaving in your tails so that everything's a little bit cleaner and easier to work on. The base of this arm is 12 stitches. So when you press it flat, it is 6 on each side. Now what we're going to do is hold it up to the piece wherever you're going to be attaching. And we're going to work on the inside by going through the stitch closest to you. And then you're going to go through the next stitch on the body. So you're working under 4 loops total. And then you just single crochet like so. And then you continue that for the rest of these stitches, as like you're only working half. So in this case will be 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so that is the first row of the attachment process. So you still have this left over. This is still open if you need to add stuffing. And you can see how it is attached quite cleanly right there. I'm using different colors so that you can see it a little easier, but if you're using the same color like I did with Nico the Narwhal, this is a pretty seamless way to attach. So I'm going to work the rest of the way around so that I can show you the second row and how to attach that. Okay, so we have come full circle, and now it's time to do the second row of the attachment. And this time we're going to completely ignore those first 6 stitches that we did in the previous row. Instead, we're going to just work directly into the next stitch on the arm. And we're going to just work those 6 stitches around. Oop, careful you don't go into that row. Now this last stitch is going to look a little funky because I didn't weave in that end. I'm going to work over the tail, but that is what you should have as the attachment. And now I'm going to work directly into the body. And just keep crocheting around. So in the end of the day, you'll have something that looks like this. Now, this method of attachment is really good if you want your piece to be sticking out pretty straight from the body. And also because you're pressing the open end of this flat, you're going to have a very clear, like, flattening near the base, which is really good for some projects, but not necessarily for others. Like I said, I did this for Nico the narwhal, so his fins are pressed kind of flat near the base of the body, but that is exactly what I wanted, and I wanted them to stick out like this. So that is how you do the 2-row method. Now I'm going to show you how to attach horizontally across just 1 row. Okay, so I have frogged back to show you how to do this second version of attaching, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to press our arm flat. So 6 stitches on one side, 6 on the other. Now when we hold it up to the body to attach, this time, instead of going on the inside of the piece and only going through one side, we're going to work through both sides. So there's 4 stitches right there, or I'm sorry, 4 loops, 2 stitches. And then we're going to also work through the body. So you should be working under a total of 6 loops. And then you just do a single crochet. And you're going to repeat that process for the length of the entire arm or the limb that you're attaching. So again, we're working through both sides of the arm and the body. And then you just continue working on the body as normal. So this is what that attachment would look like so. Again, you're going to have the same kind of look as far as it being attached to the body. Again, it's going to be flatter because you're pressing the open end flat. This version is really good if you want the arms to sort of lay against the body like this. So if you imagine like this was a longer piece, like a teddy bear, then this arm would kind of rest like that. Now, you wouldn't be able to stuff this. It would already have had to be stuffed before you attached because it is closed up here, unlike the first method. Both this method and the previous one are great because you will maintain your stitch count on the body. It's not going to mess with your shaping or anything. So that is working an attachment across 1 row. And there is actually another method of attaching across 1 row, but it will increase your stitch count. So let's look at how to do that. Now we're going to look at attaching the arm in a different way. This is actually more commonly used with things like dolls because it's a great transition point between like the chest of a doll and the shoulders where it gets wider. So to do this, instead of pressing your piece flat, you're just going to hold it up to the edge. And now the orientation of how you hold the arm kind of depends on like where the hand is, if there's any specific shaping. That will be very particular to a pattern. But for the sake of just this tube, I'm going to attach at really any point. So I'm just going to go into this stitch. And then I'm going to crochet all the way around the arm. So 12 total single crochet. Okay. And for the sake of getting this tail out of the way, I'm just going to poke it down into the arm. Okay, so we've worked 12 single crochet around the arm. Now we're going to go back into the very next stitch on the body. And keep crocheting. So in the end, your attachment is going to look very different from the 2 previous ones that we did. You have an entirely new 12 set of stitches added here, and if you were doing 2 arms, you'd have another 12 on this side. So this affects not only your stitch count, but the shaping, how you would continue increasing or decreasing the project going forward. This is a really great method if you're doing some more like complex shapes. And it does give the arm a little bit more range of motion, whereas the other methods were very static as far as sitting against the body or poking straight out. That is how to attach horizontally. Now is the tricky part. We're going to talk about how to attach something vertically along the body. When you're going to be attaching something vertically, you do need to have a very good sense of where the center line is of your project, whether you're doing it on the back or on the belly. And if you're following a pattern, this should be very clearly marked. So I'm going to use this little example of like a dorsal fin, because this is actually a technique I use with my All of the Orca pattern. So this is a very rudimentary little dorsal fin. I just whipped it up really quick to kind of show you the technique. So what we're going to do is press your fin or whatever you're attaching vertically, you're going to press it flat. And this has a total of 18 stitches around. So there's going to be 9 stitches on each side, but that actually doesn't, it only matters because that means it's going to take 9 rows to attach this. So keep that in mind. Whatever you're attaching vertically, you're going to need that distance of rows to fully attach it, so that can possibly affect your shaping if you have to do increases or decreases. Just keep that in mind. What we're going to do is, let's assume that this is the center of the back of our pseudo whale that we're making. Now, you're going to be attaching straight on like this. So what we need to do is, I've actually already removed my hook from the working loop. You're going to press your piece flat and insert your hook. So the orientation of this kind of matters. Okay, so assume you're going like this. You need to insert your hook from the opposite side through toward your working loop. This is the direction I'm going because I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, you'll go in from the opposite side. The point is, you want your hook to come from the opposite side through the piece you're attaching to your working loop. So I'm going to reach through, and my yarn got twisted. Okay. Going to pull this through. You're just pulling the working loop through the work. I haven't done a stitch yet. I just pulled the working loop through. Make sure your yarn is going underneath the piece. And then we're going to go directly into the next stitch. And I'm going to work over that yarn tail just to get it out of my way. I'm going to single crochet. Okay, so I've worked a couple of stitches. So that is our first like attachment point. Now I'm going to work around this again to get back to here, and I'll show you how to continue attaching and talk about some of the things that you need to keep in mind for vertical attachments. I made it back around to my last stitch before we got to the fin. And I did forget to mention, you will have the exact same stitch count because pulling the yarn through the fin does not count like as a stitch. So you should still have the same number of stitches. The one immediately after the working through the fin is a little hard to see, so make sure you're not skipping that one. It's good to double check your stitch counts. Now that I've worked back around, I'm going to repeat the process by going through both sides of the fin from the opposite side. I'm going to grab my working loop and pull it through. Make sure your yarn is going underneath the piece you're attaching. And then work into the very next stitch on the body. Like so. So that is row number 2 of attaching. Now, One thing that you do need to be aware of when attaching vertically is your stitch drift. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, I've got 5 stitches before I hit the fin every time. However, because I'm right-handed and my stitches tend to lean to the right, if I keep doing 5 stitches and then going through, my fin's slowly going to drift this way and it's not going to be straight on the back. So what I need to do about every 2 rows or so is either I need to add like an increase here to sort of push the fin this way to compensate for that stitch drift, and then skip a stitch on this side so that you maintain the same stitch count. All you're doing is just adjusting where the fin is going. And that entirely depends on your own tension. If your stitches line up straighter, then you don't necessarily need to worry about that. If they're leaning more this way, then the opposite's true. You may need to add a stitch over here, skip one over here if you're left-handed. That is just kind of the nature of your tension and drifting stitches. So if you wanted to continue attaching this, you'd work it up for an additional 7 more rows, and then the fin would be fully attached. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to do the YouTube things, like and subscribe. It really lets the algorithm know that my content is valuable. And if you have any thoughts on your favorite methods for attaching, share them in the comments below. I'd love to hear. These are by far not the only ways to attach things. There are lots of different methods. These are just the most common. And if you'd like to give this practice, Nico the Narwhal is available for free on my blog. I'll have the link in the description box below in case you want to try making him. I hope you have a great day. And if you want to do a deep dive and kind of read the instructions on how to do all these attachments, I will also have that blog post listed in the description box below. And I'll see y'all next time. Have a great day. Bye.